Lucas was a bully, but he had been her father's choice, and Regina had always done what her father had wanted her to do. Bertram Knowles, her father, whose oil company, with its platforms dotting the Santa Barbara coastline and stretching all the way to Huntington Beach, had sold his self-built business to ExxonMobil for billions, retiring at the age of 42. He'd raised his only child as a princess, especially after her mother died when she was 13. At college, she'd lived the protected life of a sorority girl, majoring in Romance languages with vague thoughts of a career in international journalism or fashion advertising. She expected something to materialize through her father's connections. But when she graduated, her father told her that it was time for her to marry, time to give him a grandchild. She and Lucas had never had a child. Her doctors told her that she was fertile. Lucas refused to submit to an examination. She signaled the waiter to bring her a second Chardonnay. "The man at the end of the bar would like to pay for your drink," the tall Eurasian bartender said, nodding toward her left. She looked down the bar. An early 30s blonde-haired man smiled at her, then winked. He wasn't bad-looking, she thought, well-dressed in a light blue sport coat, open-necked shirt, and dark slacks. He looked well-built and younger than her. He could be a businessman or a golfer, topping off a day at the office or at the nearby country club with a drink before heading home, someone hoping for a little action to spice up a dreary life. He caught her eye, then raised his glass in her direction. He was drinking what appeared to be whiskey. She smiled back but shook her head. "I'll pay for my own," she told the bartender, "but thank him." She wasn't about to be picked up in a bar, not this close to home, not by someone who winked at her. She shuddered. Was it time to return home? If she drank many more glasses of wine, she might have difficulty driving, especially in this fog. She'd have one more drink. She downed the rest of her glass in one gulp, then signaled the bartender for another. The man at the end of the bar held up his glass and raised his eyebrows as if in question. She ignored him. Even a second glass of wine had not heightened his appeal. She sipped the third glass more slowly. Maybe Lucas would have gone to bed. He often retired early when he'd had too many whiskeys, and she was sure that he'd kept drinking after she'd left. But now she needed to use the restroom. Better to do it before heading home, she thought. She left her drink half-finished and headed for the restroom at the back of the restaurant. When she returned, she noticed that the man at the end of the bar had gone. She relaxed a little. He looked harmless, but his friendliness had made her uncomfortable. In the near blackness outside the restaurant, she fumbled with her key, almost dropping her purse. She hadn't realized how drunk she was. Finally, opening the car door, she sat behind the wheel and, with some unsteadiness in her aim, touched a finger to the starter button. The car purred to life, the lights blinking on automatically. She sat for a moment to steady her head. Was she really okay to drive? Startled by a sound behind her, she turned. She stiffened in terror at the face looming at her from the back seat, the hand raised in a closed fist. Before she could utter a cry, the fist slammed into her cheek, knocking her unconscious. Her assailant climbed out of the car. He pulled the unconscious woman from the driver's seat, then opened the back door and thrust her limp body onto the back seat. Closing the rear door, he got behind the wheel and backed away from the building, and then headed out onto the fog-shrouded ribbon of the Pacific Coast Highway.